This is Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this podcast series is called Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. And so many of us want to walk a spiritual walk. We want to know what it's like to integrate our spiritual principles, our spiritual traditions, our spiritual ideas within our everyday life. And it sometimes gets complicated and it gets scary, and we don't know where to go or how to do that. And a lot of my clients will call me and say, I don't know how to do this. How do you do this? What are you doing? And how can you support me? And it's really a matter of supporting people in distinguishing what are my principles based on love and kindness and compassion, and what are my principles based on fear and lack and loss and just that. And so that's what I help people do, is say, what are your truths? And how do you want to live into that truth in your highest knowing, in your highest good? And 99% of the people, when we have these conversations, their highest truth is not fear-based or lack-based. It's abundance-based and love-based. And training ourselves to move in the direction of more love and more prosperity and more abundance. That's what happens when we do these spiritual immersion processes. I guarantee it. That's my guarantee. And everyone has their own spiritual path, their own human path, and that's what we're here to discover and explore for each of ourselves in our lives. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was that when we're doing this spiritual work, you might be having a midlife crisis or an emotional breakdown. You might have had a major loss in your life of some sort, and certainly within the COVID world, this pandemic, lots of loss going on. So we're being pushed very, 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 very strongly towards getting clear with what is going on here inside me. What am I here to learn? What am I here to be with? Why is there so much loss? Why is there so much going on in the way that it's going on? And how am I being impacted by that? So each of us, and I emphasize that because regardless of what our circumstances are, we're each affected by this, and we are each asked to be in the question of, what's this about for me? What am I here to learn? What's the big aha for me that I can train myself to live into more and more? And sometimes we get lost in this process, or we get stuck, or we get crazy and insane, and we don't know where to go, and we just get depressed, and we go to bed, and we go, I don't want to get up in the morning. I don't want to get out. I want to be under my covers all day long. I know a lot of people like that, and I've had those days myself. And it's in those processes, in those times, in those periods of despair, despondency, depression, where we go, okay, what's going on here? Why is there a stuckness here? And sometimes this is a really great time to reach out to either a coach or therapist, or perhaps even an energy worker who can help disengage you from that stuff. It's one thing to look at your astrology and go, yeah, that's what it says it's going to happen. But to help us extricate ourselves from patterns and energy and vibrational density, it takes a lot. I work with a particular woman. Her name is Elizabeth Sabet, S-A-B-E-T. She's extraordinary, and she's helping clear a bunch of stuff that I couldn't clear on my own. And there are other energy workers who help people clear stuff, whether it's chiropractics, acupuncture, massage therapy, all kinds of, crystal work, anything. There's so many processes in the world that can support and empower every single one of us to move to a higher degree of consciousness, a higher degree of empowerment to choose in alignment with our highest truth. And it's up to each and one of us to find our own way to discover, or to say, no, this is the way I want to do it. This is how I want to do it. So when we're in these states of loss or depression, despair, despondence, it's not a permanent state of lost and hopeless and powerless. It's part of the process. And to know that is really, really important. And, that's part of my work, is to say, okay, this is just part of the process. You're on the path, and this is one of the roads you have to go down. There's no bypasses here. This is what is going through. And my work as a steward, I'll say a steward to support and empower people, walk along them, companion them along this road when it gets bumpy and gets scary and uncertain and empty and it feels like the abyssness, as one of my clients put it. And there's many people like me in the world that do this kind of work, and it's up to you to find those people or be open to them finding you, however that works for each of you. That's part of what this is about. But one of the things that I find is interesting is that we are tethered. I was trained as a marriage and family therapist. And many of us trained as a family therapist, we don't really look at the degree, I can't say that, the degree to which those family dynamics are tethered to us in ways we don't even understand until we begin to look at them. So, for instance, what I'm talking about is the multi-generational process. So, for instance, a client of mine, I'll call her Ziv. She is from Israel, and her mother is from Israel. She's a first-generation American. No, she's not. Her children are first American. She came from Israel. Her mother came from, I think it was Russia. And so the grandparents came from Russia. And so there was this whole patterning of life in Russia when it was hard. Like when her grandparents were alive, that was like around Stalin and all the revolution and the millions of people that got killed. And then the people who, around the World War II, who decided to go to Israel, and they're now transported to Israel into this world that is so hugely different from the world of Russia or Germany or Poland or wherever they come from. And now they're in this desert country with an environment where people don't want them there. They're intruders. So my point is that there's this whole multi-generational process, and my client is dealing with similar issues of living in a country that she feels isolated from. She doesn't feel connected to or engaged to. And there's this multi-generational process that she is carrying with her. And so it's pretty fascinating when you think about that. If you look at your process and where you came from and what's your family story, it gets rather interesting in terms of what you're carrying through your life. In the Bible, it says the sins of the father will be visited on the son. Now, this isn't the sin as in your father's a bad person, and so now you're a bad person. It's like we carry the traumas and the dramas, and we carry the loss and the fear. We carry that in our system. This is scientifically proven. And so this is not just a woo-woo spiritual thing. This is science that says we carry these generational processes within our genetics and our DNA. That's really fascinating. So when you're in the midst of a spiritual immersion process or a midlife crisis or a crisis of faith, you are exposed to some of the very same patterns that your ancestors were exposed to. And you are carrying that, and you can carry it to a point of completion. In a sense, this can stop with you. The trauma, drama, patterning, the living in anxiety, the living with isolation and abuse, you can stop the pattern here. And you go, well, how the heck do I do that? And part of it is just becoming aware of it and saying, wow, yeah, I do the same thing. I do have that anxiety. I do this patterning. I do have these beliefs in terms of being a stranger in a strange land and how it feels to experience that and know that and live it as if it's true. And how to shift that, that's the next level. But coming into awareness of these patterns is really a great part of this adventure. And seeing how we're tethered, how we hold on to those patterns, the loyalty, the patterns, the loyalty to our country, like Israelis who are dedicated and are loyal to their countries, and then those who are not, but those who are loyal and dedicated, it could be causing suffering. And how do we be with that? And where does that come from? And how do we untether ourselves from that patterning? So that's all part of this spiritual immersion, spiritual self-discovery process in what shows up every day. And the degree to which you are curious and the degree to which you want to find fulfillment and completion with these processes and patterns is the degree to which you'll show up for yourself in this self-discovery and in this healing process for yourself. So that's it for today. Just kind of be curious if your parents are still on the planet or your grandparents. Have conversations with them if they're from other countries, even from whether it's your Europe or Eurasians or African or Chinese or Asian countries, Pacific, Indonesia, anywhere. Listen for those stories of what you still carry as part of those patterns of your ancestors. Some of it's very, very positive and it's a good thing, and some of it is like, well, that doesn't work anymore for me, and maybe I can let that go, just as a possibility. All right, so enjoy the exploration, enjoy the adventure of discovering more of who you are on this multi-generational level, this multi-dimensional level. All right, big hugs. Bye-bye.